Hello everyone, my name is Mike Kleinerbeek. I'm with Frontier Precision. I'm excited today because just got in today the Matrice 300. I would like to compare it to some of the previous platforms they've been using in public safety, inspection, and that's really currently what this is marketing at, is the public safety and inspection industries. So we're going to look at those today, how they compare sizes, capabilities, go over some frequently asked questions. The first thing I wanted to go through was the size comparison. So first thing is the aircraft. The case that it comes in is actually quite a bit larger than what you would get with the 210 case. So the 210, you can see here, this is the factory case. Actually a pretty nice case. It uses latches on the front here. It's got wheels. Pretty small. The 210, as you know from previous, is it folds up. It can fit in a case like this. A lot of users, we suggest to go to the larger hard case. That's a little bit more durable, and you have to do a little less unpacking for it. The case that comes with the 300 is actually quite an upgrade. So you're going to see here, this is a true hard case. It seals, so you'll see a vent for that seal as well. So this, you have no problem if it's getting wet, if you're out and it's really dusty, keep it closed, and it's going to keep all your equipment very clean. It's very hard, so you can set stuff on top of it. The wheels are very durable. You can see here, just uses two wheels there, very similar to what you'd see on a GPC or Pelican case. It has a handle as well, so when you're wheeling it around, there's a handle that extends. Let's see, you can see that. So, shut. Okay, so really a very nice case that they include. My guess is you'll see some third-party vendors come out with cases that are a little bit larger. Again, so you have to do a little unpacking. Overall, the aircraft is substantially larger, but I think they did a really nice job in utilizing the space they had in this case here. So let's go ahead and open up the case. Not quite as fast to deploy. I would say if I had to time myself on setup for both of these systems, it would take just slightly longer with this system due to the folding of the case. But apart from that, they do a good job of utilizing what space they have. So you got room for controllers, you got room for batteries, you even have room for your camera, landing gear, everything fits in here, which is really nice for those who don't have the budget for a larger case. They can get everything into this case and they can use it. It's a great case. Shouldn't have any problems there. So let's go ahead and take this out of the box. Unboxed, you can see the size comparison side by side with the M210. Again, another common system that would be used in these industries. Size-wise, you're looking at the 210 weighing about 10.5 pounds. So that's the weight of the 210. Where the Matrice 300, you're looking at 14 pounds. Okay, and that's with these batteries here. Okay, so that's about your flyweight, no camera. Max payload, you're gonna have 13.5 pounds max payload here. So again, that gives you about 3 pounds to work with payload wise. On the 300 system, you're getting about 20 pounds max payload. So that will give you 6 pounds. So you're almost double the payload capacity with this aircraft. So again, pretty good jump in weight, but also you're getting a pretty good jump in payload as well. Size components, your batteries, as you would imagine, size-wise, larger batteries. That's why they're getting longer flight times. So this is TB55 battery. This is your TB50. Sorry, TB60. So the TB60 battery, definitely larger. Propellers, you can see here, if I did a side-by-side comparison, these propellers are pretty large in comparison to the Matrice 300, maybe another 2 inches on each end, so 4 inches larger propeller. Also, these are curved, kind of like you would see on the Mavic. So here I have the Mavic Dual. Again, you can see the size comparison here. And it also has those curved tips. Makes it a little quieter. So it'll be interesting to see and hear how quiet this aircraft will be in comparison to the 210, because the 210 does make substantially more noise, but it is a little bit larger and it just has the straight tipped propellers. So it's comparison there. Okay, other size comparisons, chargers. The factory charger with the 210 is substantially different than what they went with the 300 series. 210 charger was pretty much just this little thing. It's the hub charger, and these little doors flip open. So you got 4 little slots, and your battery slides right in there, like so. And you can do 4. It will only charge 2 at a time. Not really that impressed with this charger. Recommended a lot of times that people go with a more robust charging situation or solution, just because a lot of times this thing would be not quite plugged in all the way and it may not charge. Sometimes it would pick 2 non-matching batteries, so typically you'll match your batteries together or pair them, and sometimes it would pick 2 that weren't paired and charge those first. So a lot of people frustrated with this charger. That's why we usually recommended a different solution for most people. That's probably where I've seen the largest jump in progress as far as this product goes, is now we have a lot larger charger. So I'm going to move this here for a quick moment. So this is the battery station 60, so for TB60s. And I think they did a really good job here. You have a little indicator on the front here will tell you what all your batteries are doing. You have room for WB37 batteries here. They even have a little door that pops open, so that way when you plug in your cable, you don't accidentally shut this case on the cable. Although I do see that becoming a piece that breaks off, just because when someone's ready to pack up and go, they unplug it and they try and slam this shut, and you might be able to crack that off. So anyways, this will charge pairs at a time, but it can hold 8 batteries. It doesn't have a lot of extra padding up here, so if you're going to use this for storage, I'd probably recommend putting a piece of foam up here so it puts a little pressure on your batteries. That way you don't have to worry about them sliding out. But yeah, I haven't tested the charger yet, just got it in, so we're going to run this through the tests. But from what I could read and what I know is that it's going to charge 2 at a time. So it's going to pick the fullest 2 and go with those 2 and then jump to the next 2. But it should charge them in an hour. So it's relatively quick in comparison to the TB55s, which took substantially longer. I believe it was an hour and a half or an hour 40 minutes for the TB55s. So really excited about the charger. It's gonna be a big change, big help for a lot of people. Okay, now jumping back to the aircraft. See if I can get this big thing here. Okay, so we talked about the cases, the propellers, batteries, charger. Now I would like to move to cameras. So as you can imagine, and if you've seen any of the videos, the H20 and the H20T are the payloads that they recommend using with it. It is compatible with cameras like the XT2. So here's the case for the XT2, just to kind of give you some size comparison. And then here's the case for the H20. So quite a bit bigger camera, but it's multiple cameras in one. Similar to the XT2, but it's got 3-4 cameras in one system. So you're able to save a little weight by not having to have two systems like the Z30 and the XT2. Now you can have that all in one camera. So it comes in a really nice case. This camera does fit in the aircraft case, so if you do not want to use it, you don't have to. But here's the size for the H20. Okay, you can see here. I would say it's pretty similar to the length of the Z30 and maybe the width of the XT2. But camera right there, it has the laser rangefinder, and then it has two cameras on this payload here. This comes factory with the single gimbal, so if you want to order a dual gimbal model, kind of like the 210, you'll have to add that to your order. And there's also an upward gimbal mount as well, and that is an add-on too, kind of similar to the add-on that you'd have to get if you wanted to get the upward gimbal on the 210. So again, those are options, but you want to make sure you include those options when you purchase your aircraft. A lot of people are wondering which cameras are compatible. Most of them are, all of them, but like the X4S, the X5S, and the X7, they are not compatible with this. The reason for it is that the image processing happens on board the aircraft. They did not include that with this system. So basically what I tell people, if it has an SD card slot on it, it will be compatible with this system. If it does not have an SD card slot, then you still have to utilize the 210 or the Matrice 200 series. So controller would be the next thing. And this is probably somewhere that I wish they would have included some more options. So the controller looks very similar to the smart controller that you would get with the Mavic 2 smart controller. Although it does have an internal battery, the internal battery will last up to 2.5 hours. So if you forget to bring an external battery, you have the internal battery to keep you going for another 2.5 hours. With the external battery, then you have the ability to have 4.5 hours of video transmission or control. Your screen, you're limited to this screen. You do have an HDMI out, so on the top here, you can plug in to a TV monitor if you'd like to, or a video transmission device. But this is the controller screen size, which is 5.5 inches. The reason I think that's kind of a bummer is because with the Matrice 200 series, you have the option of having swappable monitors called the Crystal Sky. The Crystal Skies are not compatible with this system, so you no longer have the option of the 7-inch screen. You just have the 5.5 inch screen. So a little bit smaller monitors, a little less customizable as far as that goes in comparison to the 210. So what I've recommended people to do for now, if they don't like the small screen, is hook up another monitor to your HDMI. That way you have a larger screen to look at. Okay, we'll have more information on the remote here shortly, but again, just as a quick comparison, quite a bit lighter. It's not going to be as strenuous holding it for long periods of time, where the larger remote on the 210, a lot of people would go with lanyards or something like that to hold the remote, because if you're flying for a couple hours, you can start to feel the weight of that remote, where this is very small, very lightweight, very easy to use. Okay, again, similar to the remote you would get with the Mavic 2 series if you got the smart remote. Okay, just an overview on some of the specs. So we talked about the weight already. This one being obviously quite a bit heavier. Max weight's 13.5 pounds fully loaded to this one right here, which is going to be 20 pounds fully loaded. So you got an extra 6 pounds of weight there. Max speed. In this dual gimbal configuration, the max speed for this is 45 miles an hour, where the max speed for this one is 50 miles an hour. So you got an extra 5 miles an hour with this aircraft right here, which is nice. Anytime you can get a little bit more speed out of it, that's great. Wind resistance, that's probably the biggest thing we look at, is how much wind can it handle. I'm located in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We're in the Midwest. It's always windy, so it's not uncommon to have a 30-mile-an-hour wind day. And so we look at wind speed. It did bump up for this aircraft, which is great. Wind speed or max wind resistance is 33.5 miles an hour, where the old one was 27 miles per hour. So not a ton increase, but definitely noticeable. And we've actually tested this one out in 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it's held. It's tilted quite a bit, but it's held, so we kind of stress test it. I'm guessing we'll have similar results with this one, probably just a little bit more of an increase. So I'm hoping that we can get a day where it's 45, 50 mile an hour, and we can test the wind resistance on this. Because from what I found is DJI is pretty conservative on their max wind speed spec, especially in comparison to other manufacturers. Okay, flight time. That's really the holy grail for especially public safety and inspection, is staying up there. That way you don't lose that time that you might need if something happens in that small window. That's a big problem. So max flight time with this platform here is 55 minutes, where the max flight time on the RTK version was 33 minutes, and that's empty payloads. When you add payloads, so max weight configurations, you're down to about 24 minutes on this platform here. Okay, and this one gets down to about 31 minutes. Okay, so even you're carrying an extra 3 pounds of payload with this one, it's still gonna fly 31 minutes. So you still get a substantial flight time, even with max payload. In your typical configuration like this one here with this camera, you're looking more like 45 minutes of flight time. So you handily beat the 210 in flight time category. Okay, IP protection. So I brought along an IP chart, so that way you have a clear description of what IP protection these are. So this one is advertised with IP43. This one's IP45. So very similar in regards to the dusts and kind of small objects protection. That hasn't changed. And the 4 in 43 and 45 is protection against solid object greater than 1 millimeter. Okay, so I would not be setting this in the sand and blowing a bunch of sand into it or dust. It definitely is more resistant than most aircraft are, but it's still not a 5. So a 5 or a 6 is really what we like to see if it's going to be that kind of protection. Okay, where they did increase is the water protection, so they went from 3 to 5, and that's a pretty good increase. So the 3 is protection from vertical moisture, so if it's raining, up to 60 degrees, so it can come at an angle, which is great for most cases. If you have a little bit of rain or anything like that, this is perfectly fine. But now what it is it's protected against jets of water. So now you can actually take a hose and clean it off and not have to worry about it. So definitely a big jump there. Heavier rainstorms, those kinds of things, you're not going to have to worry as much here. So better increase as far as water protection goes, which is great. Okay, and then the temperature limitations, they're identical. So just like before, you're looking at -4 degrees Fahrenheit is the limit, and that, again, that's the published limit. I do know of some agencies that have gone below that by taking special precautions, but they both have heated batteries, and that's usually where your limiting factor is the battery. So -4 degrees Fahrenheit on both of them, all the way up to 122 degrees. Unfortunately here, we don't get that hot. Well, fortunately, I guess. Fortunately, we don't get that hot. But unfortunately, we do get down to -4 during the winter. Hopefully, we don't have that anymore for the until it gets to this winter again. But definitely a test that we like to trial is the low temperature. I would expect them to test similar, and the 210's been great in the winter months. Have had 0 issues there, so long as you're taking care of the batteries and you're heating them properly. But it has checks in there. It'll tell you if your battery's too cold, it'll warm it up. So it's very dummy proof in that regard, is that it's going to tell you if your battery's too cold. Okay, video transmission. This is another area that the increase was quite substantial, like the flight time. This video transmission signal could get you out to just a little over 4 miles, which in my experience has been plenty in most agencies. Where that comes in handy is if you get some tree cover or something like that in between you and the signal, or a building, then you still have the ability to control it. Obviously, it will chop down that distance quite substantially, but you want to be able to have the video signal be as reliable as you can, even at short distances if you get behind something. So, a little over 4 miles here. This one here is over 9 miles. So if you think about that, you could stand 9 miles away from your drone, have a 1080p signal transmitted from you or to you from the drone 9 miles, which is unreal. So that's really cool. Obviously that allows some beyond visual line of sight capabilities. So that's something you definitely want to look into. But with that video range and the ability now to basically pass off your control to another person with a controller like this, you're able to, you could daisy chain your pilots. Even if it's, you know, if you have visual line of sight from a mile out, now you could have a pilot take over control. So as long as both of them see the aircraft, according to the FAA, then you can transfer control and continue on. So you can now daisy chain your pilots, which in an inspection will be really nice. Public safety obviously has its applications there too to do that. Don't have that option with the 210. You're limited to 2 controllers on the 210, so you could have two send-ins controllers, and they'll both get video signal. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll hook up the second controller to a TV for that video signal. With this one, the capability is a lot more where you can actually pass off control and allow the second controller to have different user functions. So very exciting. Can't wait to test that as well. Now I'm going to go over some frequently asked questions in regards to the Matrice 300. Again, in comparison to the Matrice 210 RTK. First question that I get already is the RTK data capable of being used in PPK? So the answer there is that currently it's not. So when you take a picture, it does not save the GPS data or the timestamp data onto an SD card like it does with the 210. Now it only works with the 210 with an X7 with certain lenses, so you have to make sure you're using the right camera to get that. But with the X7, all that data is saved and you're able to use that in your image processing. So if you're doing an aerial survey, I would still recommend the 210 RTK because of that feature. This one does not have that feature. DJI has alluded to that possibility being released, and I can see that happening because it is a very similar system. It uses the same base station, or can use the same base station as the 210 RTK. So it wouldn't be that challenging for them to come out with a camera that has a mapping capability to it. So right now is no, but keep an eye open for it. It's something that could happen in the future. Is the 300 RTK survey grade data? So I kind of answered that question already. The answer is no. You'd have to use an extreme amount of ground control points in order to get there versus something that has PPK or RTK. Is it compatible with the base station? Say you already have a 210 RTK with the base station and you don't want to buy one for this. The answer is yes. So if you have a 210 RTK or a Phantom 4 RTK or an Agras RTK, you can use that base station in connectivity. Now you might ask, why would I do that? What is the benefit? And the benefit is that it's going to allow you to have some resistance to magnetic interference. So if you're doing power line inspection or flying near large metal structures, connecting to a base station will give you some benefit there, because if there's magnetic interference, that won't affect your aircraft when you're connected to the base station. It uses that position from the base station versus a magnetic compass for heading data. How does the M300 RTK acquire real-time differential data? Okay, and that's by either connecting to the base station, or you'll be able to connect to a network RTK as well. So if you have a VRS network or something like that, you'll be able to connect it same as you could with the 210 RTK. Okay, let's see. Now moving on to remote controller questions. Are the remote controllers compatible? And we covered that a little bit. So the only controller compatible with the 300 is the one it comes with. You can buy a second one if you'd like to, but no other controllers are compatible. It uses a different video transmission system called OcuSync Enterprise, and that's the reason for this proprietary controller. Does it support 4G? The answer is yes. So if you use the Phantom 4 RTK or the Agras or any other products that has a 4G dongle, it only supports one type of dongle, so it's not just a Verizon dongle or anything like that. You have to have the specific type of dongle, but you can do that, and you can buy a 4G SIM card and use that capability if you'd like to. Otherwise, what we typically do is just recommend hotspotting. So if you needed to connect to a network or something like that, you can hotspot and connect to that network as well. Okay, no, it does not. Oh, does it support the Crystal Sky? And the reasoning here is that it uses a different, or the processor is too slow for all the capabilities of 300, so it does not support the Crystal Sky. So the batteries will charge in 60 minutes. So if you're empty to full, 60 minutes, which is a lot of an increase in comparison into the TB55s, which would take almost twice that long. If, however, you just fly it down to 20 like a normal person does, and you want to charge it up to 90%, so you can fly it again, so that kind of middle ground there, then you can charge it in 30 minutes. So the thought there is that if you have enough batteries to fill your case, is your batteries will be ready to go by the time you need another set. So you'll be able to charge and stay ahead of the discharge. How do I maintain the TB60 batteries? Very similar to how you maintain the TB55s. Try not to keep them fully charged. Try and keep them somewhat in the middle, somewhere between 40 and 60%, and you'll be fine there. The other question with batteries is, can I take off when my battery is off at two different levels? So let's say, for whatever reason, one's at half and the other one's at full. Can I put both batteries in there and fly? The answer is no. You do need the batteries within, I recommend 5% of each other. So if one's at 97 and one's 100, that's fine. But if you get much more of a spread than that, it'd be kind of hard on your system. So again, try and keep them balanced. You'll pair these much like you did with the TB55s on the 210s, and you'll keep them together. You can do hot swapping with this system though. So if you land, you can pull one battery out, put in a new battery, pull the other one out, put in a new battery, and the aircraft stay on the whole time, which would be very nice because then you don't have to start it up, reload everything, get your camera settings right. You'll just be able to do that swap and then keep going. So the change time should be faster than the 210. So if we did a side-by-side comparison on, if we were monitoring a subject or an inspection, this should come out on top by a long ways just because of the speed that you can turn this thing around and the added flight time. Okay, so that concludes our comparison from the 210 and the Matrice 300 and semi-comparison, small comparison to our Mavic 2 Enterprise. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us at frontierprecision.com, and we'd be happy to get you some information on the system or answer any questions that you may have. Hopefully some of the frequently asked questions that I went over help you get a better understanding on the system, the size of the system, everything like that. And thank you for your time.